Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name, talking about Liz Cheney in the last segment. She wants to be the next senator from the state of Wyoming. She's already declared her intention to take on the incumbent, Mike Enzi, who's not a raging conservative, only 67% rating with Heritage, but he voted against INDA. He seems to have his kind of mind right when it comes to some of the very important social issues. And the significant thing in Wyoming, the registration rate of Republicans to Democrats is overwhelmingly in favor of the Republican Party, which means that seat is virtually a lock. Whoever the Republican candidate is going to be, in other words, whoever wins the Republican primary in the state of Wyoming will win the general election. So that's why the primary there, the showdown between Liz Cheney and the incumbent Mike Enzi, is probably the whole ball of wax when it comes to who is going to be the next senator from Wyoming. And that's what ought to concern us. Here's a soundbite. Liz Cheney is a television interview 2009. And again, this goes back several years, but we've seen no indication that she has changed her mind on any of this. In fact, if anything, she probably, because of the way the tide of the culture is moving, is probably more firmly entrenched in support of the homosexual agenda than she was even then. Let's listen.
If you weigh in on the same-sex marriage issue, you're a supporter of same-sex marriage?
Well, I think that states have got to make this decision. This is something that ought to be up to states. I certainly would not like to see a constitutional amendment, as was suggested in the last administration, banning it. I think it's an issue that the democratic process has got to decide. And I think that, people ought to be able to make arrangements.
But you're not willing to say that you're a clear-cut supporter of same-sex marriage? For some reason, I thought you were. You were not?
I think it's important, Carlos, for people to be able to make this decision on a state-by-state basis. But I do think that partners ought to be able to make arrangements. I think, I applaud, for example, the State Department decision to extend benefits to same-sex partners around the world. I think that it's wrong to discriminate in those relationships based on somebody's sexual preference.
So she is twice asked about same-sex marriage. She wouldn't say she supported it. She wouldn't say she opposed it. She dodged it by saying, look, it ought to be up to the states. Well, that wasn't the question. The question wasn't whether states ought to make the decision. The question is, where are you at on the issue of sodomy-based marriage? And she would not answer the question. She dodged it, but she did say she supported the State Department extending domestic partner benefits to those in same-sex relationship. When she made that statement in 2009, that was flatly illegal. DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, was the law of the land. It prohibited the recognition for spousal benefits. It prohibited recognition, prohibited benefits from going to anyone who was outside a natural marriage, a one-man, one-woman marriage. So she supports that. She supported breaking the law in order to advance the homosexual agenda. I think she is going to be a vote for the sodomy-based agenda. Now, I've got an interesting column here in the stack I want to talk with you about because it's very significant, because it comes from the left side of the social spectrum. And by the way, before I jump into that, the flip side of gay marriage, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but the flip side of gay marriage is gay divorce. Now, we've talked about this before. The most extensive study that's been done of the homosexual community, published by Simon & Schuster back some time ago, but it indicated that 43% of homosexuals, 43% of them, self-reported, this is self-reporting homosexuals, that they had had over 500 sexual partners over the course of a lifetime. 500. And the average, this is a study coming out of Denmark or Holland just recently, in the last year or two, that even homosexuals that are in what they call monogamous relationships, where they're kind of partnered up and they're publicly identified with one partner, had an average of 8 sexual partners over the course of the previous year. Now, in heterosexual circles, when people are married, it does happen. Obviously, it happens, but it's not a common occurrence. This was the average, 8 outside partners. So these relationships are notoriously short-lived in the homosexual community. And Colorado's had a civil unions law that's been in effect since May 1. They've already got, this is May 1, so what? It's June 1, July 1. We're now 2.5 months into this. They've already got 7 same-sex couples going to court saying, we want to dissolve this thing. This was a mistake. We should never have done it. We want out of this thing. This is after, about 10 weeks of being linked together in these civil unions. So The reality is there's just a pathology about homosexuality that makes these long-term relationships just virtually impossible. There's an outfit called Southern Equality, and they are going through the South, and their strategy, and they're coming here to the city where our headquarters are located. They're going to go to the local county courthouse tomorrow, and you're going to have 2 gays or 2 lesbians, I don't know which it'll be, and they'll go into the county courthouse, and they will ask for a wedding license. And they're targeting states in the South that have marriage amendments that prohibit the recognition of sodomy-based marriages. So they'll go into the county courthouses, and they will ask for a marriage license only, and they're doing it so they can get denied, to make these folks who are just simply trying to uphold the law and support traditional morality, natural morality, try to make them look mean. And I chatted with the county clerk here in our city. This is where our county seat is, and she's ready. I mean, she knows they're coming. She's ready. She's going to be polite. She's going to be firm. She's going to be courteous. She's going to say, look, I took an oath to uphold the law, and the law says that you're not eligible to get married in the state of Mississippi. And she's going to do it, and I'm sure she'll do an absolutely fine job. But they videotaped the whole thing, trying to arouse sympathy. You know, and our point as an organization, look, homosexuals already have full marriage equality. They already have full marriage equality because any homosexual can get married on exactly the same basis that anybody else in America can, and that is to one non-adult or non-relative adult member of the opposite sex. That's the same rule for everybody. That's equality under the law. They have marriage equality. Same rule for everybody. And see, they don't want equality under the law. They've already got it. They have full marriage equality. They want special treatment, special privileges, special protections, and what makes it worse is these special protections they want are based on aberrant sexual behavior. So anyway, that'll be coming through the South. Now here's the story that I wanted to get to. You know, one of the arguments that we have made about legitimizing sodomy-based marriage is that it inevitably is going to lead to polygamy, and it's going to lead to incest. It's sort of the slippery slope thing, only it's not a slippery slope. It's more like a kind of a water slide where, whoop, it's a 60 mile per hour plunge to the bottom. And everybody says, oh, you're exaggerating, you're hyperventilating, you're getting hyper about this, you're exaggerating. Nobody's talking about that. That's not going to happen. You know, and I've had this suspicion for some time. I've never heard back from the headquarters of the LDS Church, but I have had a suspicion for some time that the LDS Church has actually now become, in essence, a supporter of the homosexual agenda because they see that this could be the ticket to reinstating polygamy in the United States. Now, I'm looking at a piece from the American Prospect. This is a left-wing publication, and the title of this piece in a Wingerleft, these guys are radical left-wing extremists. The title of the piece, The Slippery Slope to Polygamy and Incest. And here is how the piece begins, by Kent Greenfield. Opponents of same-sex marriage have long argued that allowing such unions will lead to marriages among more than 2 people and between adults who are related. They're right. As a matter of constitutional rationale, there is indeed a slippery slope between recognizing same-sex marriages and allowing marriages among more than 2 people and between consenting adults who are related. This is an 8-page column, but the point of the writer is that exactly the same arguments that have been used to legitimize same-sex marriage are the same arguments that now will be used to legitimize polygamy and incest, and there is no way to differentiate those relationships from homosexual relationships because the rationale is exactly the same. And he says this is a problem. The argument supporters of same-sex marriage have made in court do not sufficiently distinguish marriage for lesbians and gay men from other possible claimants to the marriage right. If marriage is about the ability to define one's own family, remember that's what they all say, Who are you to tell us who we can't marry? Everybody ought to be able to marry the person they love. We ought to have liberty and autonomy in this. We should be able to define our own existence and define what love looks like for us. That's the argument. If marriage is about the ability to define one's own family, what's the argument against allowing brothers and sisters to wed? There isn't one. If liberty protects, as Kennedy wrote 10 years ago in Lawrence v. Texas, the case striking down Texas anti-sodomy law, if liberty protects, according to Justice Kennedy, quote, the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of life. It sounds like something off of a Hallmark card. But if liberty protects that, why can't people in polyamorous relationships claim that right as well? And so he says, look, it is inevitable. This is going to lead directly to polygamy and to incest. Now, let's quickly grab the soundbite number 10, if we can, Amy. Here's a polygamous couple talking to Dan Joseph, MRC TV, about the implications of the DOMA ruling for polygamous relationship. Let's listen.
Well, I think that with the ruling of DOMA and that ruling basically not allowing a certain segment of society to be discriminated against, it brings to light the discrimination that happens to us all the time. In some ways, we're the most traditional of marriages. And so to be able to deny us that right to construct our families the way we see fit, does it have a direct ruling? No, I don't, I'm not a legal scholar, so I don't know what that is.
Do you know of anybody, any polygamous advocates who have since filed any suits since DOMA and based on the DOMA ruling now arguing that polygamous marriages should be treated with the same legal, the same law?
There's nothing new or recent that's been filed. There's a lawsuit right now filed by the Brown family of the Sister Wives reality show.
Sure.
And that is pending a ruling right now. And our suspicion has been that that judge has been waiting the ruling from DOMA to certainly weigh in what he was going to do, knowing that it's probably going to be appealed.
And so the writer in the American Spectator says, look, we need to accept the fact that our arguments in favor of marriage equality lead to polygamy and incest. Focal Point, AFR Talk.